Praise the Lord, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving right into it. We're going to objectively unpack the exact chronological sequence of events found in Genesis chapter 34, strictly using the New International Version text. We are going to treat this text like the gripping, complex historical account that it is. Seriously, this is a story that reads almost like a modern thriller. It's filled with tension, diplomacy, and some truly shocking twists.
We're pulling this straight from the text of Genesis chapter 34. And let me tell you, this is a profoundly dark historical narrative of conflict, high-stakes negotiation, and extreme retaliation. We're going to walk through this chapter step by step. We aren't taking any sides here, we're simply letting the text speak for itself. So, let's look at the underlying motivations, the deceit, and the devastating consequences that eventually unfold.
Section 1. The inciting incident, a violation in the land of Canaan.
So every dramatic historical event has that one spark, right? That powder keg moment. And our narrative kicks off right here, when Dinah, the daughter Leah had borne to Jacob, goes out to visit the women of the land. The text explicitly states that Shechem, the son of the local Hivite ruler Hamor, saw Dinah, took her, and assaulted her. This is the absolute catalyst for everything that follows. It's a brutal, inexcusable violation that completely shatters the family's peace. But then, the text notes a really complex psychological turn. Shechem's heart is drawn to Dinah. He loves her, and he actually demands that his father get her for him as a wife.
Now, the immediate aftermath gives us this stark, really fascinating textual contrast in how the family reacts. Jacob hears his daughter has been defiled, but his sons are out in the fields. And the text says he remains totally silent. He does absolutely nothing until they return. Meanwhile, when the sons come in and hear the news, they're described as instantly shocked and furious. I mean, think of a modern family dealing with a sudden devastating crisis. Sometimes one person completely freezes up to assess the situation or protect themselves, while others immediately ignite with explosive anger. This divided reaction sets the entire psychological stage for the brothers taking matters violently into their own hands.
Moving on to Section 2, a proposal of alliance. Hamor and Shechem's diplomatic offer.
So instead of bracing for a violent confrontation over what just happened, Shechem's father Hamor actually comes out to Jacob's camp to initiate a diplomatic negotiation. He proposes full societal integration. He offers intermarriage, settlement, and completely open trade. To use a simple, everyday analogy, this is kind of like a hostile corporate takeover being quickly followed by an incredibly lucrative merger proposal just to smooth things over. Hamor is trying to absorb Jacob's family into his own people, offering them land and economic freedom to basically make the profound personal outrage just go away.
And then Shechem himself steps directly into the negotiation. He basically offers them a blank check. He tells them to set the bride price and the gift as high as they possibly want, and he will pay it, no questions asked, as long as he can marry Dinah. He is desperate to legitimize his horrific action through vast wealth and rapid diplomacy.
Section 3. The deceitful condition, the brothers' calculated counter-offer. The sons of Jacob, they are entirely driven by the profound defilement of their sister, so they don't accept the money. But they don't declare open war either. Instead, they respond with a highly calculated and deeply deceitful counterproposal. They falsely state that they cannot give their sister to uncircumcised men, establishing one extremely physically demanding prerequisite for the alliance. They are literally weaponizing a sacred religious rite. This actually brings us to the first of 3 actionable steps we can draw from studying this historical text for our daily lives. Process deep anger constructively. The brothers' intense fury was absolutely justified, but by masking their vengeance in deceit in a fake treaty, they set a course for unrestrained catastrophe. When we face severe wrongs, seeking justice is right, for sure, but using deceit as a weapon almost always multiplies the destruction.
Section 4. The city agrees, persuading the men at the gate. Hamor and Shechem actually find this proposal highly acceptable. Shechem, motivated by his delight with Dinah, loses no time acting on it. But they can't just make this sweeping decision alone. They have to persuade the men of their city to undergo this incredibly painful procedure. And this brilliantly illustrates how political persuasion works both back then and today. To convince the men of their city, Hamor and Shechem don't talk about Shechem's love for Dinah. Nope. Instead, they emphasize pure economics. They argue that the vast wealth, livestock, and property of Jacob's family will effectively become theirs through this merger. Which leads to our second actionable takeaway. Evaluate deals that seem too good to be true. Just like modern voters being sold a tough policy based purely on promises of economic gain, the men of the city let sheer greed blind them to the immense physical vulnerability they were about to take on. Always look past the immediate pitch to see the hidden costs.
Well, as the source text continues, we see that economic argument works perfectly. The allure of Jacob's wealth is just too strong, and every single male at the city gate agrees to be circumcised. The trap has been set, and the city has unknowingly stepped right into it, driven entirely by the promise of easy prosperity.
Which brings us to Section 5, Retaliation and Plunder, the violent climax of Genesis 34. What looked like a peaceful, super-economically beneficial alliance is about to be completely shattered by a brutal and calculated massacre. And the crucial point here is exactly when the brothers strike. They wait until 3 days later. Medically speaking, this is when the men of the city would have been in the most agonizing pain and completely incapacitated. Right at the moment of maximum vulnerability, Dinah's brothers, Simeon and Levi, take their swords and attack the unsuspecting city. It is a total, horrifying slaughter. Every single male is killed.
Amidst all this chaos of the broader massacre, Simeon and Levi have a highly specific target in mind. They execute Hamor and Shechem, the very architects of the assault and the failed diplomacy, and they successfully retrieve their sister Dinah from Shechem's house before leaving the immediate scene.
Right after that initial attack by the two brothers, the rest of Jacob's sons stumble upon the dead bodies. And because their sister was defiled, they systematically loot the entire city, shifting from a targeted rescue straight into total war. The plunder is staggering. They take the flocks, the herds, the donkeys. They strip the houses of all wealth. And, most devastatingly, they carry off all the women and children as captives. The very wealth Hamor promised to his citizens is violently reversed. Jacob's sons literally take absolutely everything the city owned.
Section 6. The troubled aftermath. The resulting family fallout and fear.
Now, you might expect a story like this to end with some kind of triumphant return, but instead, the historical account concludes with intense domestic fallout and a looming threat of further war. When Jacob hears what his sons have done, he sharply reprimands Simeon and Levi. And notice his primary psychological concern here. He doesn't explicitly mention the morality of the massacre, but rather expresses this intense, paralyzing fear for his own survival. He points out that this unprovoked mass violence has turned the surrounding nations against them, endangering their entire household. This is our third and final actionable step. Recognize the ripple effects of your actions. The brothers thought only of their immediate vengeance, but their actions put their entire family and community in existential danger. We've got to consider the wider collateral damage our intense reactions might cause to the people around us.
And that brings us to the final, completely unresolved sentence of the chapter. The brothers offer absolutely no apology to Jacob. Instead, they fire back with this question: should he have treated our sister like a prostitute? They leave us to ponder their chilling, unyielding justification for the slaughter. It's a powerful, provocative thought that just abruptly ends the narrative, leaving the tension hanging thick in the air. Who was right? Who was wrong? The text forces the reader to sit with the messy, brutal reality of human vengeance. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into Genesis 34. If you found this explainer helpful in breaking down this complex text, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.